Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your Inspired Books Group Coaching Call. Today is Monday, May 6th. May,
Tuesday.
May, May, May,
It's Tuesday.
2025. Yeah, it's going fast. Uh, yeah, we're into May already. Okay, so just start off with any questions, any comments, any updates, anything on anything. I don't even remember, what did we talk about last week? You remember?
Social media.
Building your following.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, Mary's question. Any follow-up to that, Mary?
I haven't done anything with it, but I took notes and they're here somewhere. And you said you were going to update the course so that people wouldn't have to go through all of the
Yeah.
coach notes
Yeah.
classes to find
It'll
it.
be in the you'll have group coaching, but yeah, I'm gonna put it in the course as well, the book
Yeah.
course. So, all
Um,
right.
but no.
Welcome, Annette. Okay, we're just getting started. So, anybody else have anything? Zoom has a problem today. No video, no speaker. I wanted to share my A plus content is up on my astonishing. Oh, okay. Well, I can pull it up for you. Astonishing Joy paper. Let me go out and see if I can find that.
Guy, maybe you can try rebooting your system. Sometimes like the RAM is just jammed up.
Okay.
Hmm.
Loading. All right, let's see here. Astonishing Joy paperback. Okay, the paperback. The wrong one. There's the paperback. Okay, all right. Okay, so let me share. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times if I leave a lot of stuff up on my computer, this new one seems to lock up a lot easier. All right, so let me share her A plus content. So here's her book, The Astonishing Joy Novella. And scroll down from the publisher. She's got this whole one right here is one block where you see the picture of the book and then the line on and then the little column on the right. That's one block. And then a bio and then a tribute to her parents. Oh, I love that. That's cool. Yeah, very nice. Good job, Diane. It turned out real well. She's got some scripture over here. Yeah, that's very good. I love it. Awesome. See? You guys can do it. Very good. Very good. All right. Anything else? All right. So today I wanted to go over just I had think outside the box as my email heading um, for marketing. And this is something that we talked about. Gosh, it's probably been almost 2 years ago because I know Annette, the other Annette, was still on the calls because she's the one that had asked for the topic. And I remember going over a lot of this stuff. And I think that was almost 2 years ago. And so I'm like, time to revisit it and just get your guys's and I think I've talked about some of this stuff before, but not as in depth as this list is that I have. But just again, wanting to leave you with something to get your guys's, thoughts going, to think outside the box necessarily, or, think outside the box as far as different marketing things you can do for your book. Some of you are wanting to write maybe one book and that's it and you're done, or maybe one or two books and that's it and you're done, and you just want books, or some of you trying to maybe start a business out of it, do some coaching, maybe have a course, whatever, or just, be a full-time author. Lots of different reasons that you guys might have for writing your books and what you want to accomplish with them. So I have quite an exhaustive list here of different things that you can do to market yourself, market your book. If you have a corresponding business, that as well. So I'm just going to go through these. Some I'll expand on a little bit, some I'll just go through real quick. But listen to them and see if you have, if you can think of any ways that you could use these. I know the last time I had brought this up, some of you that were here had all kinds of thoughts going in your heads at what you might be able to do. So let's just dive in. All right. So of course there's the social media posts, all those different platforms. And we went over last week how to get social media followers, the things to do to really grow a platform, grow a follower, maybe grow your email list, things like that. And so I'm not going to go into that. Y'all know what social media is and pretty much how to use it, especially after last week. If you missed last week, make sure you go back and watch the replay. The other is a author website. And with that website, you could also put a blog on there if you wanted to, and just, do some writing, like create a blog. And, you can have your books on there. So, I mean, if you're just doing an author website, then that's usually your books, maybe a blog, maybe you have like a free, a lead magnet, something like that to offer them. Maybe you have a little mini course or something, but not like a full-fledged big website. An author website is usually just like a one-page funnel. But if you're going to have a blog, then that would be at least 2 pages. You'd have your main page and then you'd have your blog page. So you might want to start a blog, do something like that. Your email list. Okay, so it's always good to grow your email list, right? Because then you can do email marketing. You can email them and let them know I have an upcoming webinar, a challenge, a workshop, something like that. You can just give them, treat it like a blog, your email like a blog. It doesn't necessarily have to be an official email newsletter. It could be. You could create a newsletter, or it could just be emails that you send out once a week or once every 2 weeks. Some consistency, and giving them tidbits, sharing information with them. It's not about selling. If you got a new book coming out, yeah, let them know about the new book coming out. I'm excited. I'm writing a new book. I'm excited for it. I'll keep you posted on it, whatever. And the book comes out, you let them know about it. But in between those things, again, I think I mentioned last week, even with your social media posts, you don't want to sell because people don't like that. They want value, they want information, they want to be entertained, whatever. They don't want to be sold to. And if you do it in the right way, they'll come to you and say, come on, I want more. I think I shared with you guys last week. I can't remember, but one webinar that I was on. Oh, that might have been another time, but I was on a webinar and the guy said, I don't have anything to sell you. I just felt like God wanted me to do this webinar to help you guys get unstuck. And he taught it, whatever. And then everyone's like, well, don't you have anything to sell us? Because I told you I don't have anything to sell. If you want, I have courses, because he had other businesses and stuff. And, he had stuff because you can go out to my website and look at this or whatever. But it's so if you do it right, people will want stuff from you. And so, you can keep that in mind. But an email list is a way to, if you have something to get people to sign up so you get their email list. An email list is a great way of marketing. It's one of the oldest ways of marketing. It hasn't died, or people thought it would die. It has not died. People still use email. And it just keeps you in front of them. And it's a way for you to get information out to them. And then, of course, there's podcasts. You all know about podcasts. You can be a podcast guest, or you can host your own podcast if that's something that you desire to do. We've talked about podcasts a lot, and it's a great way to market your book, your business, whatever it is you have. But it is a lot of work because you have to do your research. You have to find the podcast that you want to approach and try to get on as a guest. First of all, you want to make sure that the podcast that you're interested in actually interviews guests. Some don't. Some charge. So do they charge? So, I mean, you want to know that stuff in advance, but you first have to find these podcasts, and to find them is hard, but you can search by topics. If you know somebody, you can search their name, but you could ask around, especially if you know people who are kind of in your industry, in your topic, you could ask around for quality podcasts. What are some podcasts that you guys like to listen to? If you're in any groups, again, that pertain to what your topic is. Hey guys, just curious, is anybody know of any good podcasts to listen to? And then you can get a list of podcasts that way, and then go out and listen to some of them so you know for sure if you like the host and you like the content, and then reach out to them. So, and when you reach out to them, I'm not going to go into podcasts here much, but when you reach out to them, remember you want to present yourself in a way that it's not about you, it's about their audience, how you can help their audience. Not, I'm good at this and I did this and I. It's this is a topic I'm passionate about, and I've listened to many of I listened to your show or whatever, and I think your audience could benefit from some of this information. And a lot of times, if there's a favorite show you've listened to, you could quote something out of that favorite show. I know that I benefited from your episode about whatever. They like that because you're puffing them up and their audience, not yourself. All right, so podcasts, again, is always a great way to get yourself out there. Diane mentioned way back when we had talked about podcasts before that she had been on some and it did generate sales. So I'm pretty sure if you're on a podcast, you're probably going to get some sales. Most podcasts are going to let you say what you have to offer. A book, a course, a website, whatever. So you could probably generate some sales, and not even sales either. You could potentially gain connections with people listening. YouTube channel, okay, that videos, that all goes with social media, so I'm not going to go over that. Your Amazon, okay, your author page on Amazon, I've talked about that recently, I think. Don't forget to go out and set that up. That's your Author Central account, and optimize that. Put as much information out there as you can, because your book, in the upper left-hand corner is your picture of your book, and then right underneath that is your picture, your author picture, with a link to your Author Central account. So you want to make sure you put your picture out there, because if you don't put your picture out there, it's going to show a blank picture frame, whatever, with your name underneath it. That to me does not look professional. If you're going to have your Author Central account set up, have your photo out there. because that's professional. If you don't have your photo out there, it either A, looks like you didn't care about finishing your setup, or B, what, I don't want people to see my face. You know, I get that. I totally get that. You know, the old me didn't like to be in front of anybody. But if you want to be an author, you got to start letting people see who you are. People need to connect with you. And your picture makes you real to them. So make sure you have your picture out on your Amazon Central, your author page. You could do joint ventures with people. If there's somebody that you could team up with, and you share emails, like, hey, could you send out an email to your group about this, and I'll send out an email to my group about, you know, your upcoming conference or whatever, you know, whatever you guys want to do. You could swap emails, you know, where you, a lot of times people will only do that if you have similar sized audiences. But if there's somebody that maybe you're a little bit closer, like on a friendship level with, maybe they would do it for you anyways, even if your email list isn't super large. You could tap people on the shoulder, so to speak. Hey, you want to team up on such and such? Ask people for referrals. Referrals, excuse me, to, you know, lead people, hey, tell people about my book, or tell people about my course, tell people about whatever. But also, hey, do you know somebody who is in this industry? Do you know somebody who works with this that I could reach out to? Do you, you know, that kind of, you know, you can use referrals in that way too, of trying to get connections by referrals. Like, who could I connect with? Do you guys know anybody that I could connect with that you think would be a good fit for me to connect with, that I could reach out to and talk to? So that might be something you could do too. Amazon ads, you can run Amazon ads. I ran Amazon ads. I haven't done it now for a while, but you can run it for 2-3 weeks. And then, you know, if you want to cut it off, you could cut it off, and then like maybe every quarter run an Amazon ad. I had an Amazon ad running indefinitely. Like it just ran every day for a year or whatever. And, you know, with the Amazon ads, they're different than like Facebook ads. Facebook, they charge you, how does that work? I forget now. I can't remember, but Amazon was, oh, the difference between Amazon and Facebook is Facebook will do everything they can to spend your money. They will do everything they can to spend your money. So if you say, I'm giving you $10 a day as a budget, they will spend your $10 a day. They will do their best to spend it. Amazon is not that way. You just give them your budget. You can do a budget of $5 a day. You can do it as low as you want. And you set it up for cost per click, CPC. So if somebody clicks on your ad, then you get charged. And if you don't spend your daily allowance of money, you don't spend it. No big deal. They don't push it out to people that shouldn't get it and so forth. So you can actually run Amazon ads fairly inexpensively, because I mean, it can add up too if you do get a lot of clicks. But if you're getting a lot of clicks and you're not getting a lot of sales, then there's probably something wrong with maybe your description. You know, once they get out to your sales page, you know, and they read it, maybe there's not enough information out there, or maybe the copy that's in your ad led them to believe one thing, but then when they got out to your Amazon page and read your description, it wasn't really what they thought. There's some disconnect, because if they're interested enough to click on your ad, they should be interested enough to buy your book. And then the other thing could be is maybe you have it overpriced. If it's overpriced, then a lot of times people won't buy it either. So, but Amazon ads can help generate sales. I know there's probably a 50-50, they don't work, and yes, they work great. And a lot of that really has to do with your setup, your copy, all of that. And I will just give you this quick tip. I've taken a lot of different Amazon ad trainings, and most of them will tell you to just use the manual setup or the automated setup, whatever. It's trying to think how it works. I haven't done one in a while. But instead of writing your own ad copy, just let Amazon do their thing. They said that the sales weren't more, and they were probably even less when people wrote their own ad copy instead of Amazon just letting Amazon do that part of it, the automated part of it. So just a tidbit, a lot of what's been said. So it doesn't make sense to me, honestly, but that's what a lot of different trainings that I have taken have said. Again, you could be in Facebook groups, you could be in whatever, different groups, wherever there might be groups, different platforms, whatever. And if you're active in those groups, you can start getting recognition. People start to know who you are. And then when you do say something, they might listen up a little bit more and so forth. And even potentially get invited to other communities and things like that. All right. So here's some things that you can do that are a little bit bigger scale. A virtual summit, a conference, online conference, that is like an online virtual summit. Yeah, that's what virtual is. Online conference, doing like a webinar, a challenge, a workshop, anything like that. Now you might think, okay, as an author, what would I do? I mean, you know, well, you could potentially just offer this workshop or whatever you want to call it, whether it's a virtual summit is different than an online conference, different than a workshop, different than, whatever. A virtual summit is usually where you have a lot of guest speakers. So if you're trying to take your book to the next level and you're trying to turn it into a business and all of this, a virtual summit, it's a lot of work. You can talk to Sam. She's done a few of them, and she can give you some heads up. Sorry, Sam. Turning people to you. But I mean, she has experience. I've not done a virtual summit. So if you want to know how much work it is, talk to Sam because she can tell you it's a lot of work. You got to find all these speakers. You got to coordinate all of this stuff. You've got to push the summit so that people sign up for it. And you want your speakers to have giveaways and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of work to it, but it could also be very successful. Online conferences, a little bit different. Online conferences, you usually still have some guest speakers, not as many. Just think of a in-person conference that you've gone to. A lot of times there's breakout sessions or there's just, different speakers that talk on, different segments of the topic. But with virtual summits, a lot of times you have anywhere from 10, 20, 30 different speakers. So it's and they're like usually quick little things. Whereas an online conference might be a little bit more in depth, and you might even have Q&A time and stuff like that. So you can dig into that if you're interested in something like that. But as like a workshop or a challenge, you could say, okay, I'm gonna do this workshop about, or this challenge about a specific topic, and just to educate people on that topic. And maybe you have nothing to sell them but your book. But what can come out of that is book sales. Maybe somebody hears you and invites you to speak at their conference, their summit, their church, their, whatever event. And it can also then grow your email list, because in order to sign up for that workshop or that challenge that you're doing, you now get their email. So now, and if they're interested enough to sign up for that, they're interested in your topic. So having them on your email list means they might be interested in other things you do. So it's not always necessarily about the immediate results of that workshop or of that challenge. It can be what comes after that. But you can use it also to educate your audience on your topic. Like I said, the one webinar I was on, he's like, I have nothing to sell you. I just felt like God wanted me to do this to help you guys get unstuck. I have other businesses that, I make my money on. And so I'm just here to help you with, XYZ. And he gave it his all. Like, I walked away with all kinds of information, and I even won a free one-on-one consultation with him because I did the exercises that he gave us to do and other people didn't. And so I won a free one-on-one consultation with him. I ended up buying one of his courses. Um, so there's a lot more that can come out of these things. And it can help spread the word about your topic. I mean, if you're really passionate about your topic, doing something like that. I know, just like as an author, just like, well, what would I do as a challenge? What would I do as a, or a workshop or something like that? But I mean, they can be a lot of work. If you can get it set up, your initial one is a lot of work because you got to do all the planning, all that kind of stuff. But if you can get it figured out, then you can just repeat that once a month, once a quarter, however often you want to do it. You might, the first one, you learn from the first one. So the second one's going to still be a little bit of work because you're probably going to tweak some of the things from the first one you did. But eventually you can get to a point where you don't have to do all that work because you've already built it. You just have to host it. So there are ways to use challenges, workshops. Sometimes you might call them a boot camp, even, especially if you're doing something about weight loss or whatever, you might call it a boot camp. And you maybe you could, at the end, you could ask people, I really don't have anything built, but would you guys be interested in like a 6-week boot camp with me? And get feedback on them. And maybe you could build something out based on their feedback. You can go into it knowing that at the end you're going to ask them. It's like, you guys, I really don't have anything built out, but especially if they're very involved, if they're very active in your challenge or whatever it is you're doing, you could say, hey, you guys, I just have a question for you. You guys seem to be loving this topic, whatever. What would you think about if I built out a boot camp for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever? Would you guys be interested? Would you be willing to pay for something like that to keep this ongoing? You might be surprised at the response. So that's something you could potentially do. Collaborate with churches or other ministries. I think most of you know that through one of the missionaries that comes to our church regularly, after I had published my first book, she read it and invited me to Africa to speak at their women's conferences. So, I mean, I just gave her one of my books, and she read it, and she's like, you need to speak at our conferences. You just never know what comes out of those things. So, you can connect with people, missionaries that come to your church, or other ministries that you may be involved in or know about. Our church, gosh, it's been five, 5 or 6 years ago. They did, I don't know what you want to call it. I think it was a 1 day event at our church. I don't know if you know who Henry Cloud is. They did, there was a curriculum or whatever from him. And so several of us from the church were speakers to deliver that information. And then we also got to tell about, you know, they did a little interview of each one of us, and played that for the audience of who we are and what we're doing and stuff like that. So people got to know who I was. And so things like that, you get your name out there by doing something like that. I was invited to speak at women's groups, a youth group, to deliver my message. For like men, like Rod, you could speak at a men's group. So those are small, little more intimate groups, but those all mean something. You're reaching these people, and these people tell these people, and these people tell these people, and you can start getting invited to different places to speak. So, and don't discount something like that. I mean, that's all important. If you have two people show up, you're invited to speak to a women's group and two people show up. It might be the two people that God wants to hear your message. And that's, I think for most of you, that's what it's about, is just getting that message out there. So, think about things like that. Is there anything you can do? Is there anybody, any minister, anything like that you could connect with? Either, work with them, or even they could say, hey, I know somebody you should connect with. I think you guys would work well together, or something like that. Like our church has a separate building for like events. And if I wanted to, I could rent it out and host a gathering there. And so you could do your own in-person event for a local event. If your church, or even a library, someplace that would have a place where you could hold your own in-person event. I've thought about going through our local, what do you call it? I think it's called the extension office or whatever. It's like continuing ed. You get these flyers in the mail of, the summer activities, and they got all these different courses and things like that, and activities that you can sign up for. I've thought about reaching out to them and having a writer's class or whatever. But then I found somebody else was already doing it. So, but if your community has something like that, you could reach out to them and say, hey, I'd like to offer a class on this. Would you be interested? And those usually, some of them they charge $10, some are $20. It's usually a pretty low fee, but it's exposure. And if you charge just a little bit, for whatever handouts you might give them or whatever, usually you have to keep the cost pretty low on something like that, being it's a kind of a community thing. But you walk away with a few dollars in your pocket and some exposure. So those are some ways of getting out into the community. Craft fairs, book fairs, vendor events, things like that. I've been to, I've participated in some different craft fairs, got myself a booth. It's a table. It's not really a booth, a table, and had my book set out and sold some books. So you could do that. You could team up with somebody. Either team up with another author so that you are splitting the cost so it's not such a big cost, and have a couple different authors at a table. Or maybe it's somebody selling a product that your book is kind of complementary to their product. Maybe you could team up with somebody and share a table. So you get some exposure that way. You can hand out business cards. If you have some free little thing to hand out, you could do that. But, have a bunch of books there to sell. So that's one way of getting out there. Local bookstores, gift shops, for not only you could check with them if they would want to do a book signing when your book is launched, but if you're wanting to do an event or something like that later, maybe they would be willing to do that. Libraries, libraries a lot of times I think are looking for events to draw people into the library. There's a couple things. You can use a library just to rent a room, to have like a meeting, a small little intimate type meeting, to host events. It could be a book signing. It could be a workshop or something like that. Depending on your topic, your library might be very welcoming to having you host your event at the library. Annette, especially if it's for kids. I mean, libraries love things for kids. So you could host an event there at the library. So just go to your local library, talk to them about it. Uh, I don't have all worked out in my head. You could ask them, what types of things do you guys like to see? So see what they want. Christian conferences or conventions, you could go to them. I was looking into one here up in Chicago where I was going to set up a booth and promote my business. And it's huge. It's one of the hugest Christian conferences there is in the US. Every year they host it and talk to a rep and everything. And he sends me all the information, and the cheapest package was like, I think $4,000. And I'm like, oh, that's too rich for my blood. And they have multiple buildings. So if you wanted to be like in the main building, it was probably $10,000. But you could go in one of the other buildings, and there might have been a $3,000 package, but I'm like, oh gosh, that's way too rich for my blood. I can't afford that. And it's where a lot of pastors come, a lot of church leaders come. I mean, it could have potentially been a really good event, and I could have maybe made my money back, but it was a huge risk. It was a very huge risk. Also, what I've come to know is a lot of pastors are very tight with their money. So I may not have made any money off of that, because they are very, very tight with their money. But anyways, check into different events on, you could search online upcoming Christian events or conferences or anything like that, in the Atlanta area or in Georgia, in whatever, see if you can find anything. Ask around. You could talk to your pastor too and say, hey, do you know of any events that come up, or do you know of any conferences? Because a lot of times they get stuff and they just like toss it. They ignore it because they're not interested in it. But you could kind of just put a bug in their ear and say, if you ever hear of something, will you let me know? Because they get a lot of information, like I said, that they get emails, they get mail, they get all kinds of stuff, a lot of which they don't really look at. But if they happen to notice something, especially if they get like a flyer, they might set it aside for you and give it to you the next time they see you. So again, a lot of times it comes down to just asking. We gotta ask, 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 ask. Doesn't always fall in our lap. Another way of partnering with other authors is you could do a challenge together or a workshop. I talked about doing that, but maybe you do it with another author. Maybe you do it with somebody you guys have complementary topics. And so now instead of just one person, it's two people, and you can market it that way. And it's even more appealing because it's like, wow, there's like these authors are coming together. This sounds like a big event or something. So you could do that. You could do a giveaway. There's ways to do giveaways, and I'm not going to get into it. I think I might have taught on it once, long time ago, but do some sort of giveaway of different books, maybe a mini course, whatever, you team together. And then you, of course, you guys, whoever signs up for any of this stuff, you share those names with each other. So you both now are growing your email list. You could, one thing you could do, Rod did this, is so you could adapt your book to be like a Bible study or small group. So he had questions at the end of his chapters to, I think he did, or at the end of the book, I forget. Anyways, to use as like a Bible study. It could be used, that way. You don't necessarily have to structure your book that way. You could have like a free download, or maybe it's a paid download. Get the companion Bible study. And like I said, if you wanted to do it as a free giveaway to just start building your email list, now people are going to go out there, they're going to download that Bible study, and so that they could maybe use it for their group. And then, okay, of course, if they do that, now more people know about your book, and it might be a prerequisite. Okay, for this Bible study, you got to go out and buy this book. So you don't necessarily have to structure your book that way. But you could have a complimentary download that goes with it. Or for some people, you might want to create a workbook. Like I have, I don't know if I have it here. Yeah, I do. Lies Women Believe, she's got a workbook that goes with it. So you got two things you could sell. This is something you could put up on Amazon and sell it. But you could also just have it like a PDF, like I said, and you can either sell it for $5, $10, $20, whatever, or you could do it as a free giveaway, depending on how comprehensive you want to make it. Like if you're just going to have a few questions, not super big, you might want to just do it as a free giveaway just to get emails. But if you want to make it quite comprehensive, then you might want to sell it, and still keep the cost pretty low so that you have a better chance of selling it and then getting emails and potentially then those people in the Bible study buying your book on top of it. All right. Check out local, sometimes there's local like TV stations that have they do like interviews. A lot of times you'll see this either late at night or early morning. A lot of times it's early morning where they interview local people, people who are doing something in the community, things like that. You could reach out to them to try to get an interview, get on their show, press releases to your newspaper. I've tried doing that with our newspaper. They didn't even respond. And then a friend of mine wrote a book, and he submitted it and he got put in the newspaper. But his family name is a big name in the community, and I'm a nobody, so that might have been why. I don't know. Yeah, they've been here their whole lives, and everybody knows them. So, but I mean, newspapers, they need content. So I was kind of surprised in a way that they didn't even respond to me. But you could potentially get an interview for a newspaper. National level, I know somebody. I did some work for him for his book, and he got an interview on the 700 Club. If you're familiar with that, Pat Robertson started it. His son now has it. So yeah, he got on the 700 Club for an interview. And the 700 Club loves inspirational stories where, something happened to you. Maybe you weren't living for God and something changed, so you are, or you got healed of something. In his case, he was an alcoholic and God delivered him from that. And so they love stories like that, so you can try it. Big network stations like, NBC, CBS, those, it's really tough to get on those. You got to kind of have a name to get on those. But like 700 Club, maybe some of the other Christian stations might be interested in your topic or whatever. It doesn't hurt to ask, right? So you could reach out to them. use bookmarks, postcards, flyers. Something Sam does for her business is she sends out stuff in the mail every now and then to her people like me, being a speaker, she sent something out, and Mary, you've probably gotten something from her. And it's really great because when you think about it, that used to be really the only way to do marketing. And now nobody does it because everybody does everything online. So you can kind of stand out because people go to their mailbox every day and they're like, "Oh, I got a piece of mail. Oh, what's this?" So you can actually stand out if you're willing to do that. Um, Whether you send it to just a few people that you want to connect with, or you send it to everybody on your well, you're not going to probably send it to everybody in email list because you're not going to have their emails. Anybody who's ever signed up for something with you, if you've got their address, but uh, I think it's a really great way to stand out because people aren't doing it anymore. So it might really catch their attention. I talked about this, I think, last week. Like you can write, and this is like a blog type thing, like for Medium, Mary, you do Substack, is that right? Um, Other Christian magazines, they all look for content. Now, like Medium, that's you just start your own account and you just start posting your own content, whatever you want, and it's meant to be more like a blog. But not necessarily any one particular theme. You can write about whatever you want. Christian magazines, on the other hand, you could reach out to them and ask if they're interested, let them know your topic, whatever, and see if they are interested in anything like that. They might be. Speaking engagements, try to get speaking engagements, try to maybe do a TED Talk. Um, I didn't even know if TED Talks were still alive. And then recently I heard somebody that I follow that just had done a TED Talk. And I'm like, okay, I guess they're still around. So you could try that. Book clubs, reading clubs. And you might reach out to your local library again to find out if there's any book clubs, local book clubs, things like that. They might know of some. Um, Make up a little course, a little mini course, things like that to just give more something that you could give out. Um, Book awards, you could try to get some book awards. There's one, I'm going to put it in the comments for you. It's called Best Indie Book Award.com. And I'm guessing here, I think it's .com. Copy. Okay, I'll copy it here. Put it in the chat. Paste. Okay. BestIndieBookAward.com. So you could click on that. A lot of book awards don't give awards to indie authors, or in other words, self-published authors. This one is specific for self-published authors. So check into book awards, because book awards, now you can brag about that. You can put that on your social media. If you really truly have a book award, you can put it on your cover of your book. Otherwise, don't put on the cover of your book that you're #1 best-selling author on Amazon, because getting #1 in a category does not count. You would literally have to be #1 in their store, bestseller, to be able to claim that on your cover. So don't do that. Don't claim that on your cover. But if you win a book award, you could put that on your cover if you wanted to. You can certainly put it in your description. And you can blast it all over social media, your email, have a picture of you holding your award, all of that. So it's bragging rights. And it makes it sound like, oh, well, maybe I should check out her book. She won an award for it. So it doesn't hurt to look into that. So those are like lots of different ways to think about marketing, because I think sometimes we get stuck on the whole social media thing. And there's so much more than social media. And sometimes we need to go back to old school, like mailing or in-person stuff, just going to a library, going to, like I said, speaking at a little local church, women's group or something. So I think sometimes we need to, get off of the social media bandwagon in a sense, not to not do it, but th start thinking outside of that. That's why I say start thinking outside the box. There's so much more you could do. Mary says North Georgia has an indie book fair twice a year. Your area might have some. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, things like that. You just start looking around. If you start digging, start asking, talk to people who are big into the book world. Talk to librarians. They might know of all kinds of things, and they might appreciate having someone to share it with. Somebody's interested. They could be a really good source for stuff. They might know of all kinds of different book events and things like that, or even give you ideas of what you could do. What do people like? I mean, they talk to people all the time about books. That's their job. They might have some unique ideas for you. So think outside the box. Social media is a great way to stay in front of people, but there's so much more than that. And so I wanted to remind you guys of that today, to leave that with you before, we're all done this month, to keep it in the back of your mind of what you might do, and it depends on what your goals are. Everybody's goals are different. So, depending on your goals, you may or may not want to do a lot of marketing. Maybe just some social media is good enough for you. But if you really want to grow a business, you want to go big, you have big plans or whatever, here's a whole lot of ideas that you could use. And there's probably more. There's probably more that I'm missing. So anything else? Anybody have questions, comments on any of that?
Thank you for that. I have like a whole colorful page of ideas. And
That's good.
And I think, again, how do you swallow an elephant? You just have to pick one and start, just start, because you're right. There's all types of ways to market ourselves. But while you were talking, I said, there are things that I really love to do, and I do it without thinking, like going out and working in my yard. It's hard work, but I don't, I do it, every holiday. It's a lot of work, but if my clock clicks to the next thing, and I just start, and I just have to train my mind to do that with my book,
Yeah.
It's just always think about promoting myself. And that is really the hard thing, I think, for Christians especially, because we've just been taught to be humble and quiet and meek and lowly and all of these postures of underneath and not above. And that doesn't apply to our talents, because we're told, to go out and multiply our talents.
Yeah.
And we're told that God is a God of multiplication, and yet we take our posture with relating to people and to our business as well, and we end up not making any money and doing anything because we're trying to, stay quiet, and I don't want any credit. I don't want any credit at all. Just, to God be the glory. And no, God put a sword, and then the Lord been telling me that He put a sword in David's hand, and it cut off the head of the giant. Okay, I mean, it wasn't like, and David didn't say, "Well, to God be the glory. I didn't do anything." No, the people go like, "He's our champion."
Yeah,
and we still
exactly.
talk about him today because of what he did for the Lord. And we just have to change our mindset to just, if we're going to be, people follow Jesus because he put himself out there. If he was hidden, they wouldn't have found him, but he put himself out there.
Exactly.
So I just have to get that mindset. As I was looking at all this, I said, and that is they're not going to buy from you, or they're not going to connect you to writing or you to whatever you do if they never hear from you. So thank you.
Yeah, Mary.
Just piggybacking on Annette, the whole time you were talking, I was hearing my Texas pastor's wife. Now, my Texas church was a good church. It was where I needed to be at the time. But as I stayed there, it got kind of toxic. And the pastor's wife was a big reason for that. Her daughter-in-law described her as God's big sister. Okay. And I was talking one time about my writing, and they knew that I had a gift. And they confirmed that I had a gift. They validated that very strongly. But I was talking about making a living selling books, and she just looked at me and very sternly said, "Freely you have received, freely give." And I have such a hard time charging because of that woman, you know?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the point that you're making, that Annette's making. It's a business,
It is.
you know? And she, no, you're just supposed to trust God to. I'm like, okay, I don't mind freely giving, and I do a lot of times.
Yeah.
My Substack will never have a paid subscription on it, but please,
Yeah.
especially when I'm the only breadwinner in my house.
Yeah. You got to make a living, and God does not frown upon that at all. You've got to make a living. And also, like when Annette was talking, what I thought of is we're supposed to go out and preach the gospel. Well, you can't preach the gospel unless you open your mouth, right? And a lot of our books that we write, some are very God oriented, like obviously Rod's book Saved is all about God, right? Some of our books are not blatantly, like this is about the Bible, whatever, but we bring either scripture into the book or it's got godly principles in it. So even if you're not outrightly talking about God, if you're talking godly principles, you're still spreading the gospel. And if you are not in front of the public in some way, then you're not able to spread the gospel, right? And if your book is helping to deliver that message, then yeah, like Annette said, we need to speak up. We need to be out there. And yeah, we can give God the glory, but he uses man. He uses man to do things. So, yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention too is a couple things. One is if you can start to develop a marketing plan even before your book is published, start thinking about different things that you might want to do, whether that's podcasts, whether that's holding an in-person event, whether that's doing a challenge, whatever it might be. Start thinking about the different things that you might want to do and how you might structure them. It all might be very preliminary, but start giving it some thought because the time to publish or the time to start planning your marketing isn't necessarily after your book is published. You want to, because you want to be strong out of the gate. That's why we use a launch team. That helps, but that's temporary. What are you going to do after that? So if you can start planning for that in advance, then you can start going from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And as I've said before, your book is a business. And like any business, if you want it to continue to grow, you have to continue the marketing. The other thing is if you find certain marketing techniques that you really like and you're comfortable with, when you do the next book or you develop your next product, you've already got that framework. You don't have to spend as much time trying to figure out which type of marketing do I want to do. You've done it now. Okay, so now for the next book, I'll do the same thing. That worked well. People responded well, or this one thing didn't, so I'm not going to do that next time. So you already kind of have that hardest stuff done, and now you just need to schedule it and figure out what you want to have in it, whatever. But it can become easier as time goes on because you've kind of developed a system in a way that works for you of the different combinations of marketing that you want to do. You don't have to do all of these. That's a lot. but pick some that work best for you. Change it up. If you don't like this one, maybe try something different. And it's trial and error, and eventually you'll find what you seem to like the best, or what works the best, gets the most response. Okay. Okay.
Kathy, I was just thinking when you said that, we, the next, when you said that the next book I write, it's a good idea to plan the marketing before I write the book, because there's another coach that I had, you brought it back to my memory, said that that idea that you gave about your group. I've been thinking about writing a book. What would you like to see in a book?
Mm-hmm.
What areas would you want to see addressed? And then you have an audience already waiting for
Yep.
the book. Before the book, I mean, they're walking with you through the process of you writing the book, and they're waiting for the book when it's released. So that was a good
Yep.
idea of planning the marketing before or while you're writing the book.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a great way to come up with topics. A lot of times coaches or, business entrepreneurs will do that. You'll see posts out there. If I were to develop a course about this, or if I were to, come up with a coaching program about this, would you be interested in it? And then if people are like, yeah. Okay, now I know what my next project is. They do that all the time. So you can do that as authors as well. So, all right. Any final thoughts? We're past our time, but I'm okay with that considering we're not going to have any more sessions soon. So, but hopefully this gets you thinking again. Like I said, it's been a while since we've talked about this big list. To remind you that there's more than just social media, and think about the people people who are in your field of topic, your pastor, other leaders in your church, who can refer you to somebody, who can connect you with other people, who could you collaborate with on some project, things like that. Anything else?
So I just wanted to say thank you, Leah, for this link to this book. Let me tell you why. I was looking at his ratings. He's only had 10 ratings on here. And
Oh,
he wrote
Keith
it
Durante, yeah.
Yeah, and he wrote it in 2020, and he is still here promoting a book through you that I'm going to get. I have more ratings. I wrote my book in 2021, so that's why I go like, I'm encouraged.
Yeah. And Keith's a pretty big name by now too, so I'm surprised that that's all he's got.
Well, he's got 49 ratings on the .com.
Oh, okay.
So that's a little bit more than 10, but not much.
Well, yeah, especially since 2020.
Yeah,
and I'm sure,
for
and if
5
he's
years.
a big name, he's been pushing himself. He's been marketing himself. So that's, like I said, that was encouraging to me. That's kind of like I call it God winks, because God knows the things that you kind of like go like, and then you say, see,
Yeah.
stop making excuses and just do it.
All right. Okay, well, hope that helps. Keep your notes somewhere where you can find them, and I'll probably add this into the course somewhere too, probably the bonus section, so that it's there. But it'll be on. You guys will have still always access to the group coaching replays as well. So if you ever want to come back out and watch it. Yeah, Lena.
While you're talking just now, an idea came to me about looking for Christian book reviewers, like, people who like review Christian books.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there are people out there that do that. You just have to kind of vet them, make sure they're legitimate. Some people, they'll charge you to review books or
Oh.
whatever, but Some are legitimate, some are good, and then others aren't. So you just got to be careful with those types of services. Make sure they're good.
And
And
Leah,
again,
I have somebody locally that reviews books. So if you um, if you have one to review and want to see if she's available, contact me and let me know. And if you can contact me through Kathy if you want to. She'll have our information still, won't you, Kathy?
Yep. It'll forever be planted away. All right. Well, I'll let you guys go for today. Thanks for being here
Thank you,
and
Kathy.
get your
Thank you so
marketing
much.
wheels turning. Have a great rest of your week, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.